It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Joe Carlo Rossi. He was born and raised in Chicago, where he grew up working in the family retail furniture business. While learning every facet of the business from his father, Dominic, Joe came to understand the value of real estate and the importance of location. As his career evolved, he focused on healthcare real estate and became the singular expert in Chicago. In 2011, he founded Joseph Rossi Associates. The company quickly earned a reputation for knowing every aspect of the dental and healthcare business. Over the past 10 years, he has grown his team and the business to offer a suite of services that address a variety of needs. With foresight and astute business acumen, Joe built a team of experts to respond to an increasingly diverse set of challenges entrusted to him by clients. Joe has executed over 350 transactions with passion and pride. He greets every morning with enthusiasm, more prepared than ever to take on a new challenge. At the end of the day, he is eager to get home to his beautiful wife, Andrea, a world-class lighting designer, and their two adorable Frenchies, Leo and Ella. And I just assumed if you grew up in the furniture business that one of your dogs would be named IKEA. I mean, what the hell were you thinking? Leo and Ella. Oh my gosh. So, the reason I called you to be on the show and not vice versa is the very simple fact that when these dentists get out of school, I was open with my own office 133 days after I graduated. But now the new thing is to not dive in the swimming pool and learn how to swim, but to walk around the swimming pool 5 years, dipping your toe in the water, going from associate job to associate job to associate job until you're so damn miserable. You finally open up your own practice. And then their first question is, well, the best location might be it's retail center, but I don't want to pay rent from age 25 to 65. I think I should own the land and building. And then I tell them about my background, where the smartest businessman in Wichita, Kansas, who was very available to young idiots like me and Jim Bell in high school, was Dan Carney, the founder of Pizza Hut. And whenever we had a business idea, we would drive down to Pizza Hut and he would entertain us. I can't believe he did that. We were so young and so dumb, but he always respected us in time. But when I asked him that question, when I started my Today's Dental, he goes, Howard, I have 1,000 Pizza Hut buildings that I would just give away if I could. I don't want to be a landlord. I want to be in the pizza business. And he hated owning his own real estate. And then my dad was infatuated with Sam Walton. In fact, we drove all the way 6 hours to Bentonville and went trout fish one time just so we could drive by and see the first Walmart store. He looked like a Muslim visiting Mecca when he stood in front of that building. I mean, he was just so impressed. And Sam Walton was the opposite. If you read his autobiography, one of the landlords, he was going to go renew his lease, and he kept delaying it, and finally he never did it. And when his lease expired, the landlord opened up an exact replica of Walmart across the street, and Sam and Helen said, that's it, we'll never rent again. We're going to be in control of our own destiny, and they own all the land under all of their 4,000 Walmarts. And then you have McDonald's. I've been saying this for a long time, that, the final model of how you would run a group practice has obviously not been determined. I mean, obviously, humans never even stood on Mars. I'm sure they're going to find a better system, but I would think it's going to come from the consultant industry, like Pricewater, Cooper, whatever, Boston Consulting. I look at law firms. They're several decades ahead of dentistry and group practice, and they've shooken out to where I think we're headed, where half are in group and half the lawyers are solo. And my gosh, McDonald's, when he opened up McDonald's, his first CEO, Sotomore, when I took MBA school, it was called the Sotomore Principle, he told Ray Kroc, he said, we're not going to make a bunch of money making a few pennies off of some French fries. He goes, let's redo this whole business where we're just going to make it a real estate business. We're going to buy the land, the building, and put on the box. And if that costs $1 million or $2 million, that's the franchise fee. And when Joe decides he wants to have a McDonald's franchise and gives me that money, I'm free and clear on the real estate. And then I sign him to a 20-year lease, where they started the lease at 8% of sales a month. And now they're all the way up to 15% because they can get it. So now every month, 38,000 McDonald's send in a rent check to 38,000 franchisees locations send in a rent check, and McDonald's is considered the 5th largest REIT, real estate investment trust, publicly traded on earth. And I tell people, and Rick Kirshner of Comfort Dental took that playbook to the end. I mean, he's up there in Denver. He has 350 Comfort Dentals, and that's what he does. He buys an existing real estate on a 4-lane street. Usually it's like an old State Farm, farmer's insurance, accountant's office. He buys it, whatever that costs, and he converts it to a 6-operatory Comfort Dental. And if it's $1 million, then he sells 2 franchise fees for $500,000 each. Then he's free and clear on his building. And now every month, him and Cindy get 350 rent checks. And so I know this was a long introduction rant, but that's where my crazy mind is at. And I'm 59 this year. I imagine this is a very difficult thing to grasp if you're just coming out of dental kindergarten school. So how do you wrap your mind around this, since you obviously know more about this? I mean, you've done 350 transactions. How do you answer the proverbial question, should I rent for 40 years or own?
Yeah, it's all about where's your capital best place. And a doctor who's starting their first practice is going to have a lot different perspective than a doctor who already has 15 locations. The way they view their real estate is going to be through a totally different lens. So it's all about where is your capital best place. And then it's a matter of where you're at in your career and what you're looking to accomplish. And then from there, you can kind of make the best decision. But there's no right or wrong answer. And it's all about what your goals, perspectives, and where the capital should be placed. You know, if you're younger, you might want to place your capital in a high rental rate, high exposure location, and having higher technology, but that could change as you mature in your practice.
Well, when you said there's no such thing as a wrong answer, I wish you would have been my high school calculus teacher. My God. That would have totally changed all of high school. That's a great question. Where is the best place to park your capital? Real estate or the business of dentistry? And, gosh darn, Pizza Hut founders, they just wanted to be in the pizza business. And now it worked out good because actually his wife, Beverly, was the genius behind. I think Dan just saw the McDonald's rolling out. He saw fast food. He said, let's do this popular pizza. But his wife Beverly was a genius. She was at the time she figured this out. A new location was about $750. It's about $250 for the dirt, $250 for the 2,800 square foot building, $250 for the guts. They had about $750 in that thing, and it would make about 7% profit. And they only had 20 tables. And during the lunch hour, when it's packed, they would do the studies, and they'd cannibalize it, and they'd go to the next small town or 5 miles down the road and do another one. And then she realized, my gosh, those 20 tables only flip one time. So let's look at profit margins. Profit margin times turnover times leverage. And so we already know that if you do $1 pizza, I think that's 7%. But if you build a real estate Pizza Hut land building business and you turn the tables one time, it's 7%. But she kept adding up all the lunch tickets and dividing them by the number of customers. And she kept getting a number under 300. So she convinced Dan, let's do this. Let's have an all-you-can-eat buffet for $2.99. Because it used to be you come in, we only have 20 tables, you got to wait to be seated, we get your drink orders, get your drinks, take your order, and by the time we bring your food, 5 minutes have gone by, you wolf it down and leave. And she says, now you can just walk in, set your stuff at a table, go to the buffet, make your own drink, and everybody was seated, eaten, and gone in half an hour. So those 20 tables got flipped twice. So they took that 7% profit margin and turned it from a 7% return on asset to a 14% return on asset. And then they went public, and the rest is history. Now he's like the richest guy in Wichita. And RIP to Beverly. But my gosh, I think when people tell me they want to start a DSO, I say, I just do what Kirshner does. Why would you want to get involved with managing a B2C retail dental office when you could just be a B2C, a B2B real estate agent? I'll give you another point of view. My pharmacy friends that were at the Walgreens and CVC by my dental office for decades, they considered it a massive promotion when they got transferred from the retail Walgreens pharmacy to the manufacturing shipping and deal, and they're just like, oh my God, to not ever have to deal with a crazy customer at the desk. I mean, they're in hog heaven. And I'm like, if you think going to Walgreens and getting 28 tabs of penicillin is crazy, how would you like to give someone a shot and do a root canal and the tooth sore for a month? I mean, so I think the ultimate DSO model would be the Sotomore model, which is the McDonald's model. And, what do you think? You said there's no right or wrong answer, but you weren't there for me at the high school math deal. So what is your response now?
You gotta pick the right real estate for your practice. When we're first getting like our vision plan together with a new doctor, we don't get too bogged down on whether you want to buy your real estate or lease your real estate. You do the best thing for the practice. And depending upon what they're looking to accomplish, what type of practice they are, generally all of the new doctors are looking for high exposure, high traffic, high visibility, grocery anchored retail centers as a general dentist. Specialists have a little different lens, but the majority of our younger doctors are looking for prime time real estate locations. We found that over time, the doctors that are in the best locations, their practices tend to grow faster than ones that are not. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter.
So Harry J. Sonborn is his name. It's spelled Sonneborn. Do you know anybody with that last name? Is it Sonborn?
I don't think so. Not that I could think of.
And he was born a Hoosier in Indiana. Look at that. He overcame all those obstacles being born a Hoosier. And my gosh, he was the first president and CEO of McDonald's Corporation, died at his Mobile, Alabama home, September 21, 1992, with his wife, Alyssa Lee, Sonborn by his bedside. But my God, in MBA school, they just thought this guy was the bomb, the legend. And it's just amazing. I'm going to ask you another question about this thing. Like I say, I was born in 62. That was the year of the flash crash. I graduated from high school in 80. That was, when Paul Volcker took over the New York Fed, raised interest rates. I mean, we had 20.5% inflation, double-digit unemployment. And then I graduated from dental school 4 months before Black Monday. And then there was the Y2K, the Lehman's. I've seen this movie 4 times, and I know how it ends every time. And I'm watching the movie live right now for the 5th time. So my question is, you can't predict. The 2 rules of bubbles are, number 1, they always get bigger than anyone ever imagined. And number 2, they always pop from a pin pop that no one ever saw coming, because if everybody saw it coming, they would have ran before it happened. And so I was wondering, with 350 under your belt, do you think this is a time to just start cash is king, and that we're going to have a going out of business sale where maybe everything might be, equities could easily be 25 to 60% off at the bottom of this cycle? Real estate, I look at this pandemic, and we had a decrease in housing starts, a decrease in construction workers because they're home with the pandemic. We lost 500,000 people. We had a contraction in the population. Every real estate fundamental has contracted, yet real estate prices have gone up, shot through the moon. That's not value, that's inflation. I saw inflation in 1980, and I'm an old dog. I don't think any millennial has ever lived. I mean, how old were you in 1980?
2.
Yeah. So I think only the old people, you have to have a grandchild to know what inflation is. And then you look at commodities, where a commodity is something that just trades on price. Oil, gas, corn, wheat, soybean. I mean, those things are up like 60%. That's inflation. And so do you think this is a time, and I know it's all about your hold period. If you're holding something more than 10 years, it doesn't matter where this cycle ends, because there'll be a whole nother cycle a decade from now. I mean, there seems to be a cycle every 10 years because, as Joseph Rossi said, who got a Nobel Prize on this subject, said that the reason there's a business cycle is because crazy humans are making all the decisions, and they get a check and balance every once in a while. But do you think it's a good time to maybe not buy real estate and land and wait for this economy to shake out? Or would you agree that if the hold period's over 10 years, it doesn't even matter and just get it?
Yeah, so I think from a commercial perspective, if you're buying real estate for your practice, you have a lot longer time period, and I don't think you'd be greatly affected by prices being inflated. And in the commercial world, prices aren't nearly as inflated as if you're buying a home. Home prices have been skyrocketing. In the residential real estate world and the commercial world aren't really necessarily related or even correlated with each other. So it all depends on what your situation is and what type of real estate transaction you're looking at doing. But again, if you have a long holding period, you could in time, it's usually going to be a pretty good bet.
So now, when I think of real estate, I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, because, I got my MBA in 98. 70% of real estate's probably residential and 30%'s commercial. In residential, you're dealing with crazy people. They get, the number one call to 911 since they've ever started was domestic violence. I mean, humans are batshit crazy. And, and when they lose their job and all their money, you can already tell by their payment deal. The only thing they hang on to is their phone payment and their car payment. They're like, flip off the house. Who cares? I remember it was really weird in 87 when I bought my first home after I graduated from dental school. I was looking at all these. I noticed that whenever they were bankrupt, what is that? HUD homes, HUD repos or whatever, that you often saw fist holes through the wall. And I just would look at that deal thinking, man, think of what was going on in this household when they lost their job, lost their house. But compare that to a commercial deal where Walgreens is going to pay their rent because they're not going to close down for a month with a dispute on their real estate. And that's what Sonnenberg kept saying. He says, my God, after they pay $1 to $2 million for a McDonald's franchise, they're not leaving. He said, you have a guaranteed tenant that we can guaranteed charge an above average rental rate. So we'll get an above average rental rate and never have a vacancy. And my gosh, I just think that's an amazing concept.
Yeah, and the tenant will pay for all of the expenses of the building. If you're the landlord, there's really not much risk in increasing expenses because you could put the burden on the tenant.
Yeah, and if you want to have a group practice and run that business, again, I would start networking with your local attorneys, because every time I open up this group practice discussion, the pros and cons and all that stuff with an attorney, they're always telling me things I'd never even thought of before, because like I say, their industry is 10 years above that. Okay, so practice ownership. Let's talk about the process. You've been part of hundreds of cold startups. The other proverbial question that I'm going to dump on you right now is, should I do a de novo and start my own from scratch, or should I buy Old Man Johnson's practice? What's the better value?
Well, there's not the Old Man Johnson practice that's highly profitable. There's a lot of competition for it, and it's scarce. For us, we have so many more younger doctors looking to start a practice with not enough good practices to transition into. So typically, our clients will look for that great practice to purchase that has, all of the attributes that they're looking for, collections plus 700 in a good location, PPO, fee for service. They're hard to find and they're very competitive. So the typical timeline, we have a doctor look for that practice, and then at some point, if they can't find it, they get fed up and do a startup. But we also have doctors right out of the gate want to do a startup. It tends to be a certain personality likes to do a startup, and a certain personality likes to do practice acquisitions. And sometimes we have somebody who's open to doing both,
Okay, well, the person listening to you right now, she's on an hour commute to work, or she's on an hour of the Stairmaster. Talk about this person that prefers a de novo startup versus someone who prefers buying existing, so she can figure out which one she is.
Yeah, the person doing a de novo wants the office to really have a nice look to it because they're going to be building something. They don't want to go in an office that's older, outdated. They want what they want, and they have like a clear vision of what they want. When you do a de novo, you get to pick what type of patients you cater to. You get to pick how the office looks. You get to pick how it's designed. And it's a little bit more of a uphill battle, more of a challenge. With a de novo, if you could grow it, you're going to have instant value add, where in a practice you acquire, you're just more defensive. You need to maintain the income stream that you've already took debt on to acquire. Or in a de novo, there's a lot more upside, a lot more in your control, even with the process of finding the office. When you have a de novo, we could get out there and start looking right away. We control the process. But if you're looking for a practice, you have to wait for that practice to come along and work for you. And you're just kind of at the mercy of the market. Whereas, again, a de novo, you can get out there, you control the process, you dictate when you open up, which is kind of nice.
So if you really care the pastel colors of your office, you'd rather do a de novo. And if you
definitely, if you're into pastel, de novo is the way to go.
Okay, so on Dental Town, a person asked under acquisition practice financing, he says, hello, I am currently a resident. I'm willing to relocate to pretty much anywhere to start a private practice. What factors should I consider when selecting a community? Population demographics, average insurance coverage, income, any states, cities stick out? And you said, this question comes up regularly. It is important to match your skill set to the demographic. If you want to practice with more intimate relationships with your customer base and a fee-for-service operation, you want to go to a more established area with higher income levels and least amount of dentists. And that's all the DSOs are going to the suburbs. That's what they're doing. They want 60,000 median household income or more. Only Aspen Dental is focused on the Medicaid market, and that's why I think they'll do better. And they just bought Clear Choice. Says you want to find a site with at least a dentist per 1,000 ratio. The trend with startup doctors is to choose a location with highly visible, accessible, high traffic areas, i.e. grocery store anchored site, that's what I did, that give you a chance to grow quickly. The concept of a general dentist starting in an office with no exposure is outdated. Is that, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so we've done out of over 100 startups, we've only had one doctor go in an office setting as a cold start, and she was taking the practice patients where she worked at down the block, and that was the only reason why she did it. Just the idea of an office building, medical office building, has been it's been dead for a while. They just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, and when I did it in 87, I know it's a no-brainer right now, but when I did it in 87, the older dentists, I mean, I got out of school at 24, and no, I was 23 when I graduated in May, but I was 24, I think, when I opened. Yeah, I was 24 when I was open because I turned 24 on August 29th and opened September 11th, and my God, I had dentists all the time saying, at the meetings, just out of nowhere, they just say to me out of the blue, if I got cancer, the last place I'd look for an oncologist is in the yellow pages. I think what you're doing is harming the image of dentistry. And I'd say, all right, whatever. I don't think getting your teeth cleaned equates to getting your nuts cut off, but whatever. And so that taboo is gone. And the yellow page thing, which he was upset with, now the yellow pages have come and gone. I don't know anybody buying the yellow page yet. So I want to focus on the younger dentists because a quarter of our listeners are still in dental kindergarten school. In fact, by the way, if you got questions, leave them in the comments or email me, howard@dentaltown.com. But my whole purpose of this, I think the only value of knowledge is if it's transferable. I mean, they built pyramids but didn't write down how they did it, and we still don't even know 5,000 years later. And I think it's the job of every old senile dentist to take everything they know and transfer it to the dental kindergarten class so they can come out a little more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in reality. But what are your options for ownership for a younger dentist in today's post-pandemic market of 2021. I mean, you hear all these one-liners that, and remember, if it's too simple, it's probably not true. Like people will say, well, a dental office sells for 1 year's gross. Well, not really. What if two offices each collect $1 a year and one makes a penny profit and one makes 25 cents profit? Those are not worth the same thing. And then you hear on younger doctors that you can't qualify for a loan to buy a practice till you've been out of school 1 year. What are you hearing in today's market?
Yeah, I mean, for a young doctor, your options are, start your own practice, buy a practice. You could do some sort of partnership, but that's usually not what they think it is. And it's usually too complicated and doesn't end up happening. So starting your own practice from scratch, buying a practice, or, the other option would be getting a vacated dental office and going into like a second generation space and then just starting up. That's kind of like a hybrid between buying a practice and doing a cold start. But those are really your options. Or you could go work at a large practice and be an associate, but you're not owning anything.
Well, you just went off the deep end into Never Land, and it's a great point that I got to bypass and talk about, and that is the partnership. I mean, every person on earth understands this concept with marriage. You don't marry the first girl you met. You wouldn't go on a date and then decide at the end of the meeting to sign an associate's contract and a partnership deal. And when you're married, you got a lot of glues. You got sex and wife and kids and family and all these traditions. You don't have any of those things with a dentist. I mean, you got this non-sexual marriage with no kids. And the thing with the wife is, you're asleep 8 hours a day, you're at work 8 hours a day. So the most annoying part of this relationship might not really surface very often.
Right.
But man, when you can't stand your partner and he's doing crowns with open margins and fillings without contacts and misdiagnosed and just in your face 8 hours a day, 32 hours. And then then at my age now, I know 100 dentists that were divorced and their partnership fell apart. Every last one of them says the partnership fallout was worse than their divorce. So Can you just stop? Because right now there's two little girls giggling in dental school and they go, oh, me and Amy, we're gonna practice together. And I'm like, well, I hope you're lesbians and you love sleeping with each other, because if you're not lesbians, this is not going to end like you think it is. So talk about that more with the partnerships, because they really have to see this as a non-sexual marriage that will fail 50% of the time.
Oftentimes we'll have doctors approach us, we're going to do this as a partnership, two general dentists, but usually they can't get through the process or decide on everything together, and it usually fizzles out and they do their own thing. We do see it work a lot with a lot of husband and wife teams. It works. And then if you have like complementary specialties going together, we see a lot of orthopedo that go together, and that tends to work because everybody's, kind of in charge of their own portion of the practice. But we have seen some successful partnerships, but usually you're right. It's complicated, and it usually doesn't work. You're better off trying to do it on your own, or having a partnership that you really both add value to.
We started Dental Town in 1999, so it's been this 2021. So it's been a 22-year joke that if you really want to get a divorce, you and your spouse should decide to build a house. Yeah. And before it's finished, you'll be single. I mean, and so what you're saying is all the problems in decision making, which, by the way, the only way you have to have an org chart. So if you have a 50-50 partnership, the lawyers are all clapping. And if you have a 51-49, the 49 and under doesn't matter. So I know there's a lot of people that are going into these DSOs like MB2 and they're saying, well, I'm a partner. Well, can you make a damn decision? How much is your partnership? Oh, it's 15%. Well, is that even liquid? I mean, can I turn that that stock to cash in a publicly traded market? Oh, none of them are publicly traded because none of them are profitable. And so the bottom line is these two partners in the decision-making apparatus of an office, they can't even get the office. So it just shows you
if you are lucky enough to get a partnership done on the exit, the transition when you go to sell, that's even more complex when you're selling out of a partnership. It's very complicated, and it's just not something I would advise unless you have it properly negotiated by every aspect.
Yeah, and they're not going to do that because they're not going to get a prenup for their marriage. I mean, you just always see that. They never get a prenup. When they go, when the only reason they became a dentist because their dad's a dentist, when they go work for him for 5 years, they never have a contract. They never have a prenup with their wife. Well, he's my dad. And then he finds out that when he got graduating dental school, the practice did $1 a year. He's now been there 5 years. Now it's doing $2.50. And the dad gets the practice appraised and tells his son, oh, I want all $2.50. And the son's like, what are you, out of your freaking mind? And then I grew up on that TV sitcom Judge Wapner, and the only thing Judge Wapner's first question was, did you ever watch that show?
Yeah,
The People's Court.
Well,
what was his first question every time? Joe, do you have any receipts? Oh, no contract, no prenup, no receipts. And you could just see Judge Wapner's eyes thinking, what an idiot. And so that's the world we're living in. They don't have a prenup, and they go in with their family. There's no contract. So what is your advice there?
As far as having a contract?
Yeah. I mean, would you go work for your dad for 2 years without a contract?
Yeah, I think it's always good for a contract kind of outlines the rules, but we do see a lot of younger doctors sign really ridiculous restrictive covenants, and it really hampers where they can go and restricts them. So that's just definitely something to really be careful of. Watch what type of agreement you sign and try to restrict yourself as little as possible. Because it could really mess with your practice ownership plans.
This restricted covenant was in the news yesterday. Well, first of all I want to say about the let me see if I can find that. 1 hour ago, North Carolina court upholds 10-year restrictive covenant between employer and former employee. When one thinks of a reasonable temporal scope for a restrictive covenant between employer and employee, usually that period is measured in months or years, not decades. But as a recent North Carolina decision reminds us, context is everything, and a 10-year restriction can be enforceable in the right circumstances. And my gosh, that is just crazy. And it varies. Remember, rule number one in court is the only thing the Constitution and the Supreme Court and legal system does is can enforce the law. They don't make the law, and they can't negotiate your contract. So let's say that you hired an associate dentist, and you said, when you leave this place, you can't contact any patients. And then your own house gets a flyer from this associate that quit and opened up across the street because you didn't have a contract, you didn't have a restrictive covenant or whatever, but you did have this, that he couldn't contact your patients. And then you sue, and you get to the court, and the judge is like, yeah, you said he couldn't contact any of your patients, and then it stops. I'm here to enforce it. It doesn't say what happens if he does. So she's like, well, I'm not going to renegotiate that contract. You said he couldn't, and he did, and people suck. Do you have any other questions? But if you said he has to pay me a $50,000 penalty if he ever gets caught, then she can absolutely enforce that and garnish his wages, his house, whatever. And then the restricted covenant is the same thing. She can only uphold it or throw it out. So if you work for me and I said you can't practice in Arizona for 10 years, and the judge said, well, that's unreasonable. You're in Phoenix. What if they went to Tucson? I'm just going to throw it out. Now you have nothing. So the whole contract is void. Now in New York, where a 40-story building usually has 20, 30 dentists in there, the restrictive covenants are measured in blocks or they're thrown out. I mean, you can't say New York City. First of all, no one lives in New York City. It doesn't even exist. Did you know that's not even a town? I've been there a gazillion times. Do you live in New York City? No, I live in Manhattan. No, I'm in Brooklyn. No, I'm in Queens. I've never had any person ever say I live in New York City. So if you say you can't practice in New York City, she's like, dude, you're in Manhattan. You're saying they can't go to the Bronx or Brooklyn or the Queens? So it's an all or none deal. They can just enforce it. So the devil is in the details. But you see a lot of bad restrictor covenants.
We see some bad ones, and then there's some times where they don't have anything and they're not restricted at all. So it's really all over the board.
Huh, that is interesting. So when they can't make a decision, I'm still trying to break up these partnerships because they start romantically in dental school and that they're going to be partners together, but they don't realize that, if one wants to buy a laser and start doing cosmetic dentistry and the other one, but what are the issues that when these two partners are trying to work with you and it never pans out, it never even gets to completion? What are the things they're getting hung up on? What subjects?
Just different philosophies on what type of practice it should be, where to go, what paint color to choose. There's just too many things to have to decide. But the majority of our new doctors, they're not looking to partner with another doctor. I'd say it's definitely the exception, but it's with a partnership, just too many decisions about anything and everything. So just too many decisions as part of the process makes it just a difficult thing to accomplish.
Okay, I know she's not listening to you talking right now because I know what she's thinking. Well, Joe doesn't know I have $400,000 of student loans and my credit cards are maxed. So I'm going to re-ask this question. What are her options out of school of buying a practice considering student debt and credit cards and all that kind of stuff? How are the finance people looking at it? Are they looking at the purchase of the dental office practice as enough collateral to cover the whole thing and they don't care about everything or what?
We frequently see doctors with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt and very little capital in the bank get approved for cold scratch startups and for practice acquisitions. I think in the lender's eyes, the practice acquisitions are even a little safer than the startup. But if you could find the good practice, you'll get funded for it unless you have some extraordinarily things wrong with your credit. But generally speaking, from what we've seen, student debt is not going to prevent you from buying a practice.
So your website is J. Rossi and Associates. And if you go to that website, J. Rossi Associates, when these people are going to you, what is the main reason your clients are using you? What tell them what you do. What is your mission?
We're ingrained in the the dental market. So after you've looked for thousands of spaces for dentists to choose a location, you have a good idea of what they look for and what some of the hot buttons are as far as that process and what makes up a good location. We have a network of bankers, attorneys, equipment reps, marketing people, all focused within the dental industry. So once they start working with us, it really helps them develop a team and they could kind of see the vision that, I can get this practice ownership goal accomplished. And these are the people that are going to help me do it. We're kind of like the igniter for them to really start seriously exploring practice ownership options. So we're constantly showing them practices for sale and showing them properties for dental offices, and then giving them, valuable content and having them educate themselves about practice ownership and what the market opportunities are.
So are you more a real estate company or a dental transition company?
We're both, but we started off doing dental real estate. And over the years, we were constantly getting the same question. Can you help me find a practice? Can you help me find a practice to purchase? And it's just a natural progression. And it's the same doctor. The same doctor who's looking to do a startup is also the same doctor who will buy a practice. So if you really don't provide those services, you're kind of doing the doctor an injustice. You have to show them both because they're the same. You're limited if you're only doing one of those. And we just learned that over time by constantly being asked to help them find practices. So we've been selling practices for about 2.5 years now. And that is even busier for us than real estate because everybody prefers to buy that cash flowing practice and with that instant instant cash flow.
Wow. And and it's a big business. I mean, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 employees. That's a lot of people in this niche market. So I assume it's going really, really well.
Yeah, we're busier than ever. We're always kind of really surprised at just the demand for dental practices and new practice opportunities. It just feels like it's always growing. And we've been in the Chicagoland market for 10, 12 years, and we still meet new doctors that we never met before, but just always kind of surprised how strong it is.
What is your geography expertise?
Yeah.
I mean, are you mostly a Chicago play?
Yeah, we're Chicago, Metro, Illinois, Indianapolis, and southern Wisconsin, Milwaukee area is really where our focus is, and we're always expanding into new markets or talking to new brokers to develop new markets. But right now we're focused Chicago, Indianapolis, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin area.
So you talk about you talk about your mission. And part of it is to build a team, a vendor team.
Yeah.
And you said you work with what are your main vendors that you work with?
Our main vendors we work with are banker, builder, equipment rep are the major ones. That's on the de novo side. On the practice acquisition side, it's really accountant, the doctor. For the accountant, banker, and the doctor.
So you say accountant?
For startup, it's banker.
Yeah.
For startup, it's banker, builder, and equipment rep.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna play with you for a minute.
Yeah.
So you deal with 5 different personalities: a CPA accountant, a banker, a builder, an equipment rep, a dentist. So I'm gonna go through those. If you were gonna go have a beer after work, of those 5 choices, a CPA, banker, builder, equipment, dentist, which one would be the most fun?
I'm saying on the equipment rep dentist side. Yeah.
So the equipment rep is the most normal of all those people?
I would say so, yeah.
And are you agnostic to and I'm just to the little kids in dental kindergarten school, this is called channel conflict. Don't trust the answer for someone who's gonna if he tells the truth, he's gonna lose his business. I mean, if he's always working with Patterson, Shine, Benko, or Burkhart, he's not gonna tell you if he hates them because it's his source of that's called channel conflict. But I'm gonna ask anyway because I don't know, you're Italian, maybe you don't even give a shit. Of the equipment, are you agnostic to Burkhart, Patterson, Benko, all of them, or do some of them make much better economic sense?
Yeah, I think it goes down to like the actual dealer, the actual equipment rep. You kind of know who, from experience, who's had success and who the doctors have liked and who's knowledgeable and who isn't. So typically we like to give a doctor a number of different vendors for each for banking, building, and equipment, but you usually kind of know who vibes. You really want to match personalities.
Good answer. So it's the individual's personality, not the company's deal. That's why a lot of people. And by the way, when you recommend CPAs, I mean, I wonder if you agree with this advice I've been given for years. But I love the way they do a background check. When you go to Catholic grammar school and you got to do a book report on Mars, you first have to do an author search. You can't just pick up some damn book or read something someone posts on Facebook without knowing who the hell is saying this. So then you do your author search, and then you listen to their information. And so when you get an accountant, I love the fact that you go to the temple, the ward, the church, or whatever, and Monsignor Thyssen says, "Oh, Alan's a great member of our church. You can trust. He's great." Well, yeah, he's a great person. He's probably not maybe he's less likely to lie and cheat and all that stuff, but he might not know a damn thing about dentistry. So I've been telling everybody for a long time, and I want to see if you agree with it, that there's, as far as CPAs, there's two dental CPA associations, the Academy of General Dental CPAs at adcpa.org, and the Institute of Dental CPAs at indcpa.org, or Kane Water and Associates. And I can't make a recommendation because I don't know who you're the CPAs in your town. He might be a total snorgasm. You know, he might be the most boring guy out there. But do you see better outcomes when you use a CPA that specializes in dentistry, or not really?
Yeah, if we're going to refer an accountant for a client, we want them to have some sort of special insight into the dental industry. I mean, I think that insight could be really helpful to the clients. So, and that's with any vendor that we introduce is supposed to have some sort of specialization, some sort of value add. Anybody that I refer to a doctor who doesn't do good work is a direct reflection on me and in the company. So when we're choosing who to connect the doctor with, it's very important, and it's thought out, and it's not something that's done lightly.
And do any of those organizations stand out? I mean, we got the Academy of Dental CPAs, we got the Institute of Dental CPAs, we have Kane Water and Associates. Do you see any of those stand out, or again, is it the individual player?
Most of our clients really don't have that intimate of a relationship with their accountant. They're doing their tax returns, and that's kind of it. If they're looking for a certain insight, they may get it from other places. But a lot of people, they don't talk to their dental accountant that much, you know?
Okay, but we both recommend that when you set up your CPA accountant team, that it should be someone who specializes in dental CPA. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree.
And equipment reps, it's more of the rep than it is the equipment. Like I'll give you an example. I started with Shine, and then my guy told my dental assistant who was with me 30 years that he could no longer see her on the day that he wanted, because he's only going to come to this side of town on this day, and it's this time or nothing. And she said, "Okay, it sounds like nothing to me." And so that's why we switched to Benco. It had nothing to do with the fact that I love Chuck and Rick and I love those guys. Yeah. It's all Valerie, and it has nothing to do with me. And when Chuck or Rick would say, "Hey, thanks for doing that," I said, "Don't say thanks, because if my assistant ever fires her, it's not going to be me, you know." Yeah. So CPA, equipment reps. So now we're with bankers, builders, and dentists. I want to ask you, when you're talking to someone who's never been in dentistry before, and someone says to you, what are the dentists like? How do you describe the dentist?
I really like working with dentists because having the real estate background, they kind of let me do my thing. They appreciate my expertise, where if I'm dealing with other real estate guys, they're a little more cutthroat, and I'm a little bit less valuable to them. So the dentist, our dentist relationship with my real estate skills is a really good fit. They've been great to work with, and they're people who, they have a clear vision, and they didn't go to school and do all this hard work to not care about what they do and value who they're working with. So I guess I feel really fortunate that I've been able to work with dentists.
So how would you, I tell everybody that the number one key to success is just you're always running for mayor. I mean, every dentist I've ever been with, I said, that the waitress, I mean, this restaurant and the bar and our dental office are right within 5 blocks, and she just said she was born in Ahwatukee. Give her your damn card. Oh, a card. I'm like, oh, Congratulations, asshole. You have grandchildren and you still haven't figured out networking and running for mayor. When I opened up my dental office, the first day it opened on Thursday, not a single patient came in, and I almost had a heart attack and died. And then Friday come, and Friday I was all excited because on Fridays we went from like 8 dentists down to 2 to like 4, and then Saturday it was just me the first year. I had a whole year of being the only guy on Saturday and nothing. And I almost died. As Thursday, Friday, Saturday donut. So I got up Sunday and I loaded up my backpack with toothbrushes, the schedule and all that. And I got a big 6-foot by 4-foot map of 85044 zip code. And in the next 6 months, I would walk down every street, knock on the door, and when they came to the door, I say, "Hey, I'm Howard. I'm the new dentist that just opened up by Safeway on the corner of 48th and Elliott. I'm going to practice here for 40 years. I just wanted to get out and meet the neighborhood." And 2 out of 3 people just thought this is the weird, a dentist knocking on your door and you don't look old enough to know how to floss, let alone be a dentist. Yeah. And I didn't care because I knew the third house would say, "Wow, well, hey, I broke my tooth out here," and I put down my backpack, put on my gloves, got my flashlight, and I talked to him, and my close was always, "Well, I really need an x-ray. In fact, if you just come down there, I'll take a free x-ray of this tooth, and I can tell you exactly." And then I pull out my, it was just a folder, a notebook, and I said, "When would you like to come in?" And he said, "Well, when are your openings?" And I said, "Well, right now I'm open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until the end of time. Does any of that work for you?" And I wouldn't stop Sunday until I was filled up next week, Monday through Friday. And now you got 50-year-old dentists that can't even carry a damn business card. Not only does it have business cards, they have economic incentive. Mine says, if you bring this in, you'll get a $20 Visa card, a gift for appreciation. And if you write your name on the back of this card and give it to someone who comes in, that person will get a $20 Visa card, and so will you. I mean, you just always got to be running for mayor. But when you are trying to build your trusted network, how should these kids try to build their trusted network of vendors, CPA, accountant, banker, builder, equipment reps, and other mentor dentist colleagues?
You have to question everybody that you're dealing with, and why should they work with you? What have you done in your past? But I guess being skeptical is probably a pretty good trait. Looking at a lot of different opportunities, talking to a lot of different vendors. It's a lot of exploratory work will help you make a good decision. When you first start the process of meeting vendors, looking at practices, you don't really know what you don't know, but the more you look at it, the more confident you get in the people that you're going to work with, in the practice that you're going to purchase. So oftentimes, as we evolve with a client, they get to a point where this is what I want. We've looked at a lot of stuff. We want them to be like super confident, almost aggressive on help me get this because I know this is what I want, because we've looked at so much stuff, talked to so many people. That's part of the process of it. And the more people you talk to, the more opportunities you look at, the better equipped you're going to be to make a decision. Oftentimes, there's good opportunities in front of dentists, but they're not prepared to act on it because they haven't done enough exploratory work. So do a lot of exploratory work, talk to a lot of people, look at a lot of different opportunities. Then you could really get in position to implement on some of these opportunities. And I think that's something I would definitely advise.
So do demographics matter, or is it really Field of Dreams, build it and they will come Hollywood movie?
I think it's a little bit of combinations of both. I mean, the demographics is information that is available. Why not make an educated, logical decision about where you're going to be? I would use that data to your advantage, but every demographic report should be taken with a grain of salt. I mean, there's just so many variables, and it's just part of the process of selecting the right location. Driving the location, being on the ground could give you a totally different perspective than if you're just going off of a demographic report. There's just so many things that aren't told to you by that report. But
And all I want to say about that, great answer. But in real estate, going all Starbucks was started. It's a great company. I mean, the guy that started its name was Howard. I mean, you should just know. I mean, and when Howard Schultz started it, now in real estate school they call it the Starbucks bump, and everybody was aware of it, that if a Starbucks comes in your area, the housing prices have a significant bump. And they all thought it was a Starbucks, but what it was Howard Schultz's real estate demographic team was so damn good, they were just identifying the exploding real estate zip codes, and Occam's razor. You just noticed the Starbucks opening up and the housing prices went up. Well, they just knew all this shit a year ago. They saw the fundamentals. Like in Phoenix, Arizona, it's so obvious. You can't get a big bust in demographics until you bring a 2.5-foot water pipe out in the desert, or no one's going to be alive after a day. And so when you follow the 6-year plan of where the city's adding that 2.5-foot water pipe was the sole decision on how I bought 3 parcels of land. And I was dumb because my sell price was just so. It was just like, once the sell price doubles, I sell. And looking back, that was good advice for the 2. But the third one, I bought at $87,000, sold it at like $175,000. And then the guy that bought it from me sold it 5 years later for $7.5 million. And I'm still nauseous from that today. That would have, I could have got divorced twice for that money. And my God. And even Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, works at Berkshire Hathaway, says, man, if you think the question of whether or not I should buy this stock is tough, the question to decide if you should sell it is even harder. Yeah. So that's why you shouldn't be a day trader, and you should buy these companies and hold them for life, because the process of deciding to sell is more complicated than the one to buy. But my gosh, we see the DSOs, and they've already written off the rule. Because you're coming out of dental school. It goes into anthropology. I mean, at the end of World War II, you were getting married at 16, 17, 18, having 5.5 kids. Now it's a decade later. So they're coming out of dental school as single primates whose only biological drive is to mix gametes with someone else and incubate a child. And if you come out single, they're not going to go to Eloy, Arizona, where there's only 12 girls there to pick from. They're going to go to Phoenix in a 3.8 million metro. So my DSO buddies tell me on this show that all their rural practices on any given day, 10% of them don't even have a doc in the box. So do you think, since the DSOs are more sophisticated in demographics, location, marketing, advertising, buying bigger volumes on supplies and deals, that it would be a big advantage to go rural, or do you think that's an overplay?
I think the DSO market in general is pretty over exaggerated, and a lot of doctors have this fear of a DSO that I really think is non-existent. But they're definitely out there, and they're active. But I just think the individual practitioner could provide such a better service and have a much more intimate relationship with their patients than a DSO. They're still a pretty small part of the market, but growing. But I think a lot of doctors have been trained to think that this big bad DSO is coming to ruin your practice. And I think that's just kind of a fallacy. And I think even if the DSO market does get bigger, I think it will fade off over time, or crack in time and get more fragmented again. But that's a whole nother conversation. And there's a lot of different dynamic there too.
Well, I like to keep it simple, stupid. I mean, I like to get a metric that's obvious and measurable, and we all see the same thing. And the obvious thing is not one of these DSOs in America could go public tomorrow. I mean, Snapchat was designed so that I could send you a nudie picture. You got to see it one time and it disappears, and they can go public, but not a chain of 1,000 dental offices. So Wall Street won't touch them because they're just buying earnings. I mean, if you do $1 million a year and they get $100 million line of credit and they buy 100 offices doing $1 million a year, they say, oh, look at me, I'm an amazing operator. My dental chain went from $0 to $100 million in 5 years. And everybody's like, yeah, and so did your balance sheet. You have $100 million of debt, $100 million of sales, and indeed, it looks like the guy you bought it from was a better operator than you, because since you bought it from Dr. Good, it looks like your margins have all deteriorated and they got all this overhead. So I don't think dentists should take DSO serious until Wall Street does. And if Wall Street doesn't take them serious, Wall Street isn't going to touch these people because they're just buying earning streams, and then they're not adding better operations and logistics. They're not improving the margins. I mean, and that's the first one that went public was Orthodontic Centers of America with Gasper Lazarus, who I've been trying so hard to get on the show, but he would buy the illiquid dental orthodontic office. So a liquid practice, like right now, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Phoenix, you put up for sale today, it's gone in a week. But if you have an 11-bedroom, 9-car garage, you're an NBA athlete, it's an illiquid asset, and that contributes greatly to their bankruptcy. On average, 1 year they spend in the NBA or the NFL is the same number of years until they go bankrupt. They invest all their money in illiquid assets that are non-performing. Nice. What was your next best idea? So when you're looking at this, how should they put their mind around it?
Yeah, I think you need to decide whether you want to be an associate or if you want to be a practice owner. But as far as the dentist, the DSO coming in and stealing all your market share, again, I think that that's a fallacy. And I think a business model built upon a general dentist being an employee is kind of almost flawed, because whether you're in private practice, group practice, or DSO, every practice owner's biggest challenge is maintaining staff, doctors in their office, and making them successful. So whoever could build that model of the general dentist as an employee is going to really have the most successful practice model.
And that playbook,
that's everybody's challenge.
And that playbook could just be handed to you by Boston Consulting, PricewaterhouseCoopers, or the biggest law firm in your town. But I forgot to finish that OCA rant, where the liquid house. Never let your money get too far from cash, especially at the dawn of the evening before the next bubble pops. You don't want to have all your money not in cash. But if you right now, if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, it's liquid. A 4-bedroom, 3-car garage is liquid, but not an 11-car garage. And in dentistry, a $750,000 to $1 million dental office is liquid, but not a $3 million. And that's what Gasper saw, OCA, is that if you were too successful as an orthodontist and you built a $2, $3, $4 million practice, well, no young orthodontist is going to come out of school and be able to take that over and buy it. So he got a big line of credit and he bought all the big, huge liquid ones. Well, they signed a deal. They had to stay with him 3 years. Well, at the end of 3 years, 100% of them left a nanosecond later. And now you got some young orthodontist kid out of school, and he goes in there and he's doing like $1 million, $1.5 million. I mean, he's exceeding any expectation you could have, but dude, he's not going to do $3 million. That takes 10, 20 years to do this. So again, they borrowed a bunch of money. They bought a bunch of dental offices, and under their management, all their earnings deteriorated. So So the DSOs have big challenges. Number 2 challenge DSOs have is we're primates, and all primates are herd animals, and we are hardwired at birth to look up to the leader. And the 400-pound gorilla decides when we're going to come down out of the trees and walk across the prairie. And if you had all the baby humans and chimpanzees and orangutans and bonobos all running 100 different directions, we wouldn't have survived 200,000 years. So they follow the leader. They're hardwired that way. And then the DSOs say, well, I want to expand the hours. So I want to have group practice, and most of them don't even want to buy someone unless they're $1 million. Well, that means that you now have 2 400-pound gorillas in there. And this is some of the early conversations from some of the biggest names used to tell me all the time, if I buy a 4 to 6 operatory practice and there's just one doctor in there, it doesn't do as much sales, and but I have no management problems. But as soon as I add another doctor, Jiminy Christmas, I have tenfold scale my management problem, and it's all because one assistant says, well, Dr. Good doesn't do it that way. Dr. Bad does it the wrong way. And I mean, it's just so having two gods. I mean, even Judaism, Christianity, and Islam figured out that monotheism works a lot better. I mean, and then they won't go to rural. They want big offices that are group practice. They have a lot of challenges they're going to have to work out, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so don't get a partner unless you love sleeping with them in bed. And then and by the way, that's the proverbial why everybody can't stand the doctor's spouse working in the office, because you don't have an org chart. If you ask Doc, he'll say yes, and you ask a spouse, she'll say no. Well, that's not the assistant's fault. That's not the hygienist's fault. That's Doc's fault. And the ones that do it successful, they divide. They have an org chart, and you let them vent. And when you let them vent, they feel better. And usually when they're done venting, they're just going to squeeze out a little bit of dopamine or serotonin. They're going to feel better. And then my pause is, well, I know you told Lori, but what did Lori say when you told her this? No, Doug, I didn't tell Lori, because she's got balls and she's gonna say no. But I know you're just a wimp, and get an org chart. You don't go to the bishop when the question needs to go to the Pope or the general. I mean, just get an org chart. And group practices don't have them. Husband and wife teams don't have them. Partnerships are crazy. My gosh. So you think the DSO threat of they've already given up the role, but they definitely think at their meetings that Heartland and Aspen are going to be the next Walmart and CVS in all the major cities in America in a decade. Do you buy that?
I don't buy that. I don't buy it. I think, again, it's just too hard for them to compete with an individual practitioner that can give me a level of care and a patient experience that they just can't give. I mean, even my personal dentist, I have a good relationship with them. I can't imagine going to somebody where I would get a new doctor every time, or somewhere, an office that had a lot of turnover. I kind of sense where I'm at, and I like the doctor that I've been going to for a long time.
Nice. What does the general market condition of the transition market look today? I mean, I know the $1 million question is this a seller's market or a buyer's market? Meaning, if I'm an old guy with a practice, is this the best time to sell? And if so, then it means that it's a seller's market, or our price is distressed and it's a good time to buy, and it's a buyer's
market. There's been pretty much the aftermath of COVID. Practices might have taken minor hits, but it's still definitely a buyer's market. And for a good cash flowing practice, there's 10 buyers for every one practice, but it's predominantly a seller's market if the practice is profitable. But if the practice is doing under 450,000 in a substandard location with low profitability, no, there's not a huge market for that. But there is a buyer for every type of practice. It's just a matter of finding that buyer. But it's a buyer's market for practices that are highly profitable. Always will be, I think.
Man, you are a wealth of knowledge. I love this. So everything you just said, we always bring our bias to the table. Our personal framework ruins everything. And I'm thinking of the general dentist because that's what I am. But everything you said so far, is it the same if you're one of the 12 specialties, ortho, endo, perias, or do they have a lot of new individual nuances?
Totally different. Everything I really said just kind of gets thrown out the window. I mean, specialty, there's just not that many of them. And they just don't come up that often. Most of the specialists that we work with are going to start their own practice or be part of a group practice. They do come up, and I would say, yes, they have a similar a similar valuation as the general offices. Some of oral surgery, endo, those will have a little bit lesser of a valuation, but they're few and far between. We're in a big metro area, and like I've only seen under a handful of specialty offices actually move. A lot of them will be done as chart sales because they cannot find a buyer for them. But some of them do move. They're just few and far between. It's a smaller market.
There's the first DSO that made it on the NASDAQ was Orthodontic Centers of America. That was especially one. But there were a dozen back in the first round. And they all spectacularly failed on NASDAQ, and they're all delisted and gone. Burner Management, technically out of Colorado, is on there, but that's a special story. But the bottom line is now you see DSOs expanding in like endodontics and specialty areas. Do you think any of those are going to be memorable?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing DSOs expand into specialty. When you have such a large number of general offices that you've acquired, there's just a natural value add by adding specialty. So the specialty practices are there's definitely people looking for them. It's just the market itself is a little smaller, but there's a lot of activity.
And when you're going to buy a practice, I mean, you're going out. I mean, I think it was funny. I was talking to this patient the other day, and she's been selling wedding dresses for like 20 years. And I said, well, what's that like? And she goes, the first dress they look at is always the one they end up buying. But after they look at that one, they spend 2 weeks and 2 months, trying on 40 other ones. They go back to the same one. So when they're buying that wedding dress and they know what they want, they go right. What should they be looking at?
As far as a general practice?
Yeah. When you're going out to looking for a practice, what are you looking at?
You want to find a practice that you're going to have a smooth transition. And the practice you're acquiring, it is going to work out for you in the long run. That doctor that you're transitioning with, it's important that you guys are kind of on the same page. The most successful transitions we see are when doctors like each other and they understand the dentistry that's being done in that office. That makes for the best transition. We'll see a lot of transitions where the doctors are like almost friends afterwards. And that really, that's the best type of scenario. But really understanding how this office has been run, understanding that patient and how the transitioning doctor was kind of operating, how he handles his staff, how he talked to his patients, how he kept the cleanliness of the office. But understanding those little minor details are really important. They make for good transitions. You'll have a bad transition when a doctor really doesn't understand or care about the doctor they're acquiring, or really understanding how they took care of the patients or how they treated the staff. Really understanding the practice you're acquiring from all different angles is really important. It makes for a smooth transition.
My God, I've taken so many notes on this deal. My gosh, who would have known that in high school the most important class I took was typing? I never would have known that at the time. My gosh, I'm just trying to think. My gosh, we've covered everything. I think all my questions. I guess. What do you? Again, they're young. They're kids. They're under 25. What do you think is their most common misconception about practice ownership?
That it's more difficult than it really is, or that like it's too pricey. There's too much competition. I can't do it. The DSOs are taking over the market. I feel like there's a lot of fear pumped into them. I can't get money for it. Too much competition. It's a bad time to be opening up an office. I just think they get bad information from people or something that they hear. But it's just a matter of really doing it, being outgoing and looking at a lot of opportunities and really being exploratory. And there's just a leap of faith you have to have. So out of our 350 offices, we've only seen, I don't know, under 3 of them fail, and some of them were for more personal reasons. I mean, to mess up a dental office, you got to really be doing something pretty bad, or you need to really set yourself up for failure, because it's not very common. It's pretty, compared to other industries, other businesses, it's pretty easy to be a successful dentist office compared to other industries. You got to really try to mess it up, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so what he just said is absolutely factual. That the when you open up a restaurant and 2 years, 20%, or what is it, 20%? Or I think I have that. Where do I have that? But anyway, like at restaurants. My God, like 20% go out of business the first year, and like 40% go business by 3 years. And dentistry, it's less than 1%. It's always because the state board took your license away. And when they take your license away, 80% of the time it's alcohol, 15% of the time it's hydrocodone, and 5% of the time it's from cocaine to prostitution. And so basically, it's like the morality I gave my kids. I said, I don't care what you do as long as you're good with it being on the front page of the Arizona Republic tomorrow. So if whatever the hell you do, you can hold a press conference and tell them, I don't care what you do, but if you can't explain why you flew that 17-year-old girl to Bermuda, what is that congressman did, Bermuda or whatever the hell. I mean, if you can't explain it, you might have a problem. And so, and if you do have a problem with alcohol and cocaine and all this stuff, I mean, gosh darn, it's a medical disease. I know that your religious upbringing told you it's a moral problem. They all need spanked and beat and thrown in jail. But even New Mexico just legalized marijuana tomorrow, because Portugal proved that when you have a substance abuse addiction problem, multifaceted, mental illness overlap, 85% economic, it's like in prison. If you're in prison, you didn't graduate from 12th grade, you live below the poverty line, and you have a substance abuse problem. This is a healthcare problem, and Portugal had the highest substance abuse in all of Europe, and they finally realized it was because they were following America, and America, every year they had more people in jail, it cost more money, they were completely obviously going to the wrong way, and Portugal said, well, America has proven beyond a doubt what the exact wrong way direction is. So he said, we're going to reverse course, legalize everything, but here's the stickler. You just can't cut out all the gels and all that stuff. You have to take the same amount of money and now put it in healthcare dollars, social workers. I mean, when someone's living under a bridge, why isn't someone talking to that person? Why are you living under a bridge? And they're addicted, they're broke, and now Portugal, who did this just a decade ago, has the lowest substance abuse in all of Europe because they switched from the religious criminal justice department dealing. So if you have an addiction problem, well, whoop-de-doo. That's about as rare as going bald. Just go get help. You need to see a doctor, not a judge. And if you don't fix that problem, it's going to come back to bite you, like you say, because if the board, and here's the other thing, I've seen this out here in Arizona firsthand several times. When the DEA knocks on your door and the dentist just denies it and he's smarter than them and he's going to get an attorney, oh my God, they take away your license, they put you to hell and back, and you're going to go to jail. But if you just raise your hand and say, I'm sorry, man, I can't quit doing this. They're like, I know. It's like, I mean, I'm fat. I can't even quit eating cheese. I mean, obviously, I think, Vicodin's probably more addictive than butter. And if you just raise your hand, the DA's totally cool. The board's cool. You're going to go in a program, peanut cup. It's all good. So get that, because that's the only reason you're going to go out of business. And if you don't believe anything I just said, well, then go into the whole business. If you think dentistry is competitive, go into the whole business. I'm talking donuts. Every chain out here in donuts, their hours are 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. And Doc's got a 3-day weekend and he thinks it's a competitive industry. Oh, please. And as far as the 12 specialties recognized by the ADA, where they say oral surgery, endo, perio, pedo, ortho, pros, dental anesthesiology, oral facial pain, oral med, oral path, oral radiology, dental public health, I'm going to add a 13th, which is dental CPA accounting. I think it's that important. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think a CPA is an important part of your team. Right? There's just a lot of things that are important. Like you were saying earlier, a dentist is like any other storefront. You got to work your storefront. You have to advertise. If more dentists looked at opening up a dental office that like other traditional businesses took that approach to it, where you have to be aggressive, you have to market, you have to let people know what you do. And you can't just wait for patients to come in the door. Having a good patient experience is something that we see our best operators, they do really well. So you have to kind of get your competitive mindset in order. Being a dentist, it's not just open up and they're going to come. You have to have a more of a marketing and a sales type approach. So once you have those dentists, once you have those patients in your chair, you could properly explain to them why they need to do these procedures. We'll have a lot of very good dentists not have the ability to sell the procedure to a patient, and they're always kind of surprised by it. But that's another really important aspect, that you have to let the patient know why they need this particular procedure. Even if you could do them with your hands, you still need to sell it to the patient. And that's what a lot of our doctors we see sometimes overlook that, or they underestimate it.
Yeah, and they even admit this problem. They tell me, I hate sales. I didn't go to dental school 8 years, learn how to sell. I don't want to sell. Get it, And it's like, well, dude, the word doctor comes from the Latin word docere, meaning to teach. And I got 6 grandkids. And if I die and they come into your office and you can't teach them the importance of why the hell they should get this cavity fixed, and that if it's $250 right now for a filling, and if they go out that door, they have the future past behavior is the number one predictor of future behavior, and they haven't been in for 3 years. And before that 3 years up, it's going to go from a $250 filling to a $2,500 root canal and crown. And they only remember with their eyes. Birds hear with their ears. Birds remember the sound, and humans remember the sight. If you don't have an FMX, a Pano, a Ceph, an intraoral camera, and you can't close the cell and they get treatment, you're not a good doctor. You're just not a good doctor diagnosing 100 cavities a day and no one gets treatment. The good doctor is a guy who diagnoses 3 cavities a day and fixes 2 of them. That's what you can do with proper deal. But with your attitude, I don't like to sell dentistry. Well, then find something you're passionate about to sell. Maybe it's boats and jet skis, and get the hell out of dentistry, because my grandchildren don't need you. If you're not into convincing Raya Roo, the little kangaroo, the importance of getting her fillings fixed, then you're not a good doctor. You know what I mean? So with that note, my gosh, was there anything you want to talk about today that I didn't bring up, or?
No, I think we hit a lot of different points that we wanted to talk about.
Well, hey man, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing everything you know. And it was just an honor to podcast you.
Howard, it's a pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
Thank you.